What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with the Canon R7 and the Sigma 150-600. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of my best pictures that I've taken with this lens and camera setup. But there is a few things to note. Obviously, the 150-600 from Sigma, the contemporary version, is an EF mount lens that I'm using. So I had to adapt it with the Canon EF to EOS R adapter. Now, as you can see, all this does is it adds a little bit more in terms of height or length to the lens. Obviously, the lens is already pretty big, and when you extend it, it becomes even bigger. But the fact of the matter is that it's just this little bit that is the adapter. Now, the adapter is very, very simple. Sorry, I dropped the lens cap. But the adapter is very, very, very simple to use. It just literally is just this. As you can see, it's got a bit of glass there at the back. In fact, no, it goes right through. It's not even... What you can see shining there is actually just the lens cap itself. But basically, when you do this, you can see that it is literally just a hole. There is nothing in that other side. So to mount it, obviously, you line up the red piece on there with the red piece on the lens, and you just lock it in place. And that is very, very easy. The other thing to note is that you do, or I would recommend, if you're going to buy the 150-600, or if you've already bought it, if you're going to be trying to use it on the Canon R7, I forgot to turn my light on. If you're going to be using it on the Canon R7, I would highly recommend that you buy the USB dock, which you can buy separately for the 150-600 contemporary. And the sports, if you've got that one and you plan to adapt it. Basically, what you need to do is make sure that you have the adapter or the USB dock so that you can take this off. You can mount that to the top of the lens, and then you can go in and adjust the settings that you need to on the lens. It's a very, very important thing because, as you can see here, on the side of the lens, there is actually custom mode 1, custom mode 2, and then off. Now, personally, I've got it set to custom mode 1 at the moment, and I do sometimes switch it to custom mode 2. Custom mode 2, I've got the autofocus where it jumps about a lot more and it's a lot quicker, but you just hit the button and it will refocus like pretty much instantly. And then on the other one, I've got it where it's much slower, but it's much more accurate. Once it grabs focus, it doesn't tend to lose it as much. Now, these focus settings, if you guys want me to go over the app and the actual dock and mount it to the camera and like basically show you all the settings that I've got to set it up with the R7 and the Sigma 150-600, how you go into the software and you program it and everything like that. If you want me to cover that in a separate video, let me know, and I'll show you all the settings and the 2 different custom modes that I have so that you guys can go and do the same thing. So you've got the 2 modes that work really differently, but obviously have different applications. If you're trying to find something that moves pretty quick, but then is not going to be obviously moving around in the background too much, something like inertial where it's in the sky, the faster autofocus mode might be better in that scenario, whereas the slower one, you might actually lose the subject and not be able to get it back. In terms of birds in flight, the other one is probably better where it's a little bit slower because once you acquire the focus, it doesn't tend to lose it as quick. So, yeah, either way, I'm really enjoying my time using the R7 and the 150-600. Like I said, I've shared with you guys some of the photos that I've been able to take with this combination as well as we've been going through this video. And honestly, I've been really impressed with it because whether it be photo or whether it be video, I have upped my keeper rate indefinitely from when I was using the 7D Mark II, which, as you can see here, has still got my little kit lens on it, which I have actually used with the adapter on the R7, and it still works pretty well. So to be completely honest, obviously I'm recording this on an RF mount lens, the 24-105, and one thing I will say is obviously the RF mount lenses have an advantage. Unfortunately, Sigma, Tamron, and some of the other third-party manufacturers do not have any lenses out currently for the RF system, but there are some that are manual focus, and there are some that are coming for cameras like APS-C, like the R7. However, we've got no announcement on full frame at all just yet when it comes to Tamron or Sigma or any of the other manufacturers in terms of new lenses like the 150-600 or the 60-600 Sports or anything like that. In terms of a big zoom lens or a big prime from Sigma or Tamron, there just isn't any about for the RF mount at the moment. I don't know whether that's going to change anytime soon. Fingers crossed it does, because what I would really love is to see some competition in the RF mount in terms of Tamron and Sigma coming out with some really good lenses that can compete with the 100-500 and the likes of the 200-800 as well. If we get that eventually, then it may be that I end up swapping this 150-600 for an RF mount version, and in the future that can use all the autofocus features, that can use the best part of what is the mirrorless cameras, that obviously currently the Canon RF mount lenses that they make themselves, like the 100-500 and the 200-800, do take advantage of. And that is something that you need to consider. If you're in the position I was, where you've got a lens but no camera that works, that you can actually use, then, you know, personally, upgrading to the mirrorless isn't a bad idea, because you can definitely upgrade and adapt the lenses. If you do what I did, which was got a really good deal on the camera, I got the camera, an SD card, and the lens adapter for saving myself about £500-600. So, in fact, it was more like 700 if you include the adapter at the higher price that I've seen it at, of like £200. But either way, the fact is, if you can get a really good deal on the camera with the adapter included, then it's fair game. And one thing I will say is, don't expect your keeper rate to go through the absolute roof. Expect to get the odd soft shots here and there. Like you've just seen, I've shown you an example of a soft shot where it's not quite right. But then, obviously, you can get some really great pictures with this setup. And as long as you're willing to put the time in and take enough pictures and sift through them well enough, then you'll find a sharp shot out of the sequences that you are taking. Now, for me personally, I don't use the electronic shutter unless I'm using the pre-capture mode on the R7. For the most part, I'm using electronic first curtain, so I remove the rolling shutter and the problems that can come with that. But in all honesty, if you're going to adapt the lenses, go for it, because the lenses from Canon, like the EF 100-400 Mark II, or the EF 100-400 in general, or the 70-200, or the 24-105, f4 or f2.8, whatever you want to use, if you already have the lenses and you're already at the highest tier of lens without upgrading to mirrorless, then what I would do is upgrade the camera, adapt the lenses, and then over time slowly upgrade your way through the lenses that you want to get. That's my plan in the future, is to start to upgrade to RF lenses over time, but I'm waiting to see what happens with the full frame lenses from Sigma and Tamron, if they actually ever get accepted as a thing. And for now, I'm very happy with the results I'm able to get with the Sigma 150-600 and even my kit lens 18-55 EF lenses when they're adapted to the R7. Now, honestly, the kit lens is not the best lens in the world, and I've got one that will obviously be better, which I'm recording on now, which is the 24-105 f4 to 7.1. I didn't want to get the f4 lens, it was too much for me. But either way, overall, the lenses that I've been able to use in terms of the EF mount have worked very well. There hasn't been much downside to them. However, you will notice a difference if you decide to go from an RF mount lens to an EF mount lens and adapt it. There will be a difference because the RF lenses are definitely a little bit better, a little bit quicker when it comes to autofocus, when it comes to autofocus tracking of the subjects and everything like that. The RF mount lenses will be slightly better simply because they've been designed with all of that stuff in mind, whereas the EF mount lenses could be ancient and aren't exactly designed in the same way because the technology was different back in the day. So personally, if you have a camera that isn't working and you have all the lenses, upgrading to mirrorless isn't the bad idea. However, if you don't have any lenses and you have a mirrorless camera, or you have no camera at all but you have no lenses and you're starting from scratch, then personally I would go for mirrorless straight away right now, simply because the tracking, the autofocus, and everything like that, as long as you can get used to it and you can improve on it and keep putting the time in, you will eventually get better shots than you would with the DSLR. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get those shots with the DSLR because that's simply untrue. It'll just be that your capture rate and your hit rate will be higher with the mirrorless because it takes some of the work out that you would have to do otherwise. In terms of keeping the tracking or the subject in focus, in frame, on the mirrorless cameras, it's quite a bit easier because you have these focus points that move around, you have the eye tracking, you have the subject tracking, which is much better able to find what the subject is, keep on with it, and get the shots that you need. However, with the EF mount adaptive lenses, some of them will be soft, some of them won't be sharp, and some of them will be out of focus. Now, I'm not entirely sure on how that translates to the R5 or the R6 Mark II or the R6, for instance, when it comes to the Sigma lens. I know my experience with the R7 is that some shots are soft, some shots are out of focus, but there is some really good shots in there, and as you've seen throughout this video, I've been able to get some cracking results. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future content, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.